The United States now has less creditworthiness internationally. Fitch Ratings downgraded the U.S. from AAA to AA+, citing expected fiscal deterioration over the next 3 years. Here to discuss is Vance Ginn, president of Ginn Economic Consulting and former chief economist for the Office of Management and Budget. Vance Ginn, thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be with you today.
Vance, what's the significance of this downgrade by Fitch Ratings?
You know, this is significant in the sense that it is our entire debt from the federal government, which has reached more than $32 trillion. And so it also is going to influence our interest rates and everything else. And what Fitch said basically was like, look, we're heading in a bad direction that is not going to have much sort of reprieve if we don't control our spending. And so I think it's a good opportunity for Congress to reevaluate what's in the budget.
And the White House has blamed Republicans for the downgrade. In your view, what caused it, and how far back do these causes go?
These causes go for a while back. I mean, this has really been a bipartisan problem over time where Republicans and Democrats have been increasing spending by more than tax revenue. So that's led to the massive deficits and the forecast of deficits. That's really what this is about, is the forecast of deficits over the next decade are going to be about $2 trillion a year. And net interest payments on the debt alone are going to be about $1 trillion. And the Biden administration has made this situation worse with all of its excess spending.
And you kind of touched on this, but in its announcement about the downgrade, Fitch Ratings talks about how fiscal deterioration over the next 3 years in the U.S. is expected. Why are they expecting that?
Well, whenever you have slower growth, which they're expecting slower economic growth over the next few years from high regulations, high taxes, and some of the productivity and population changes, that means you're not going to have as much in revenue. And at the same time, they're expecting higher increases in spending, mainly from mandatory programs like Social Security and Medicare. And at some point, we've got to get control over these spending, or we're going to have massive deficits and interest payments for the future. And that's why Fitch said, you know what, we're going to downgrade to AA+ instead of AAA, which is going to raise interest rates, which will also slow economic growth. And so all these things are coming to fruition now. We really need Congress to get control of spending.
Vance, what does all this mean for everyday Americans and their wallets?
Everyday Americans have already been struggling over the last couple of years from the excess government spending, higher taxes, higher regulations, and more inflation, unfortunately, across the economy. And unfortunately, this sort of a downgrade means that we're going to have higher interest rates. We've already seen interest rates go up. We saw the stock market kind of tank over the last couple of days. This is something that I think we'll continue to see if Congress and the Biden administration don't do something about spending. We really must do that because we've got to put America back on a path to let people prosper instead of this big government sort of poverty-stricken situation that we have now, where we have debt for the foreseeable future. This is not a good situation. We've got to overcome it quickly.
And what do you think can be done to overcome it?
Well, I think what we really need to do is Congress needs to get in and do zero-based budgeting, performance-based budgeting throughout the government, and do audits. I think independent audits of different areas of the government would help us to shine some light on where they should be cutting, which programs are working, which ones are not, and ultimately a spending rule, a fiscal rule is what I like to call it, based on population growth and inflation as a maximum. And if we had done that over the last 20 years, we would have only increased the debt by $500 billion instead of $19 trillion. That's a lot more easier to handle based on economic growth and forecasts and everything else. And instead, they're just spending one year after another just too much. And so we've got to do something about that soon.
Well, Vance Ginn, thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.